So you've decided to rent out your property, but do you want to be a landlord and manage it yourself? Do you want to have someone lease it out for you and find your tenant? Or do you want to be hands-off and hire a property management company? Hi, I'm Olivia with Good Life Property Management, and I'm here to discuss the different options that you have when deciding to rent your home. Being a landlord is a very time-consuming process, and some people love doing it and love having tenants and managing themselves, but some people would prefer to have it all handled by a property management company. Some prefer an in-between where they find a tenant for you, but then you take over management from there. There's a lot of different things to consider when deciding what is the best option for you and your home, and I'm here to go over those today. The first thing you want to consider when renting out your property is how much time you have on your hands. Managing your own property, or properties if you have more than one, can be very time-consuming. You'll have to find and select a tenant, manage the tenant, manage maintenance requests, hire vendors, do move-in and move-out tasks. It's a lot of work, and if you're not prepared for it and you struggle to keep up with the ever-changing laws that affect your rental properties, it can be too much for one to handle. If doing all those tasks yourself doesn't sound like a good time, maybe you want to hire a property manager. They'll handle all of that stuff for you, but keep you in the loop about what work needs to be done at the property and what issues need to be handled. If you want more of an in-between, maybe lease only is the best option for you. This is where you hire a management company to find, screen, and select a tenant for you, and then once that tenant is moved in, you'll take care of the rest of the management. This is a great option for you if you don't have an issue with managing the property, but you're not the best at marketing the property and you don't want to deal with having to find and screen tenants. The next thing we're going to talk about is your liability. So your liability is pretty high if you're self-managing. It's on you to learn all the laws, rules, regulations, fair housing, anything that has to do with tenant screening and managing a property effectively. That's all your responsibility. So if something goes wrong or a tenant makes a complaint or anything of that sort, it's going to fall on you. If trying to stay on top of new laws and fair housing and all of those kinds of things doesn't sound like your idea of a good time, a property manager is probably the best fit for you. It then becomes their responsibility to make sure that your property is abiding by laws, that your tenant screening isn't contradicting with any fair housing laws or anything like that. Again, they'll keep you in the loop with any issues or new law updates or things like that, but they'll be the ones that are taking care of it for the most part. They usually also have some kind of lawyer or attorney on retainer or that they can contact when these new laws come up. Lease only is an in-between for the liability issues here. Basically, that property manager will take on the responsibility of screening, selecting, and approving that tenant, but then you'll take over once the management starts. So that means that any laws affecting your property during management, such as rent control or just cause evictions, anything like that is now going to be your responsibility to know and make sure you're adhering to. So the next thing we're going to talk about is your results with these three options. For self-managing, being a landlord, your results can be really all over the place depending on how much time, effort, and energy you put into being a landlord. If you are really passionate about knowing all the laws, about knowing the rental market, how to price your home properly, you're going to have great results because you've done the research on how to get there. If being a landlord is more of a side hobby or something you inherited from a family member and maybe you just aren't as concerned, then your results will vary. Not knowing the market conditions or how to get your property ready for rent or how to attract the best tenants might mean that you have worse results than using a property manager. Now, theoretically, using a property manager will give you excellent results because they're an established business that's an expert in the industry. You're entrusting the agents there to know the market, to price your home for the best it can get, but also rent it quickly so it's not sitting vacant. Another great thing about using a property manager is that you can vet them first. So if you want someone that's really experienced, check out their Yelp and Google reviews and compare against other companies. Now with lease only, your results will vary as well. Essentially, it's the property manager's job to not only market your property, but to find you a good tenant. And that is half the battle, but the other half is managing the property. So once they hand off the property and that tenant to you, your results are going to vary dependent on how you work with the tenant, how you handle maintenance, and things like that. So you're a little bit better off than if you were to do the whole process yourself, but the management is where things can get tricky. The next thing we're going to talk about is something we call headache factor. How many headaches are you going to get by managing your own property? Well, again, if you're passionate about being a great landlord and you want to spend that time doing the research on the market and the laws and things like that, then maybe it won't be a problem for you. But even if you are passionate about having a successful rental, doing all that work, especially if you have a family, another job, or a lot of other obligations, might give you more headaches than it's worth. Now, on the flip side, property managers can reduce your headaches because you're not doing that day-to-day management yourself, you're not doing the tenant screening, maintenance, which is always a big pain point for a lot of owners and managers. All of that is off your plate. But if you get a property manager that isn't a good fit for you and your home, that might increase your headache factor as well. So you want to be sure to vet them properly and make sure that they know what your concerns are. Lease only has a moderate headache factor. Marketing the property and finding a tenant can often be stressful for first-time landlords, so getting that off your plate will likely be a big relief to you. But as mentioned previously, another big pain point for property owners is maintenance. When maintenance issues come up, having the communication triangle between you, the vendor that's doing the work, and the tenant can often be very stressful if you don't have a process in place to handle it. The biggest thing you can do here to decrease that headache, both for self-management and for lease only, is to have great communication with your tenants. This is going to be highly important for maintenance issues, but any other issues or law updates that may affect them as well. So long as you keep them in the loop, things tend to go a lot smoother. Now, on to the last point, and possibly the most important for a lot of people out there that are looking to rent their homes, is the cost. Now, off the bat, it seems that self-management is cheaper because you're not paying a management fee, a leasing fee, walkthrough fee, or any other of those fees to a property management company, so you're able to keep that for yourself. But keep in mind that you'll still have other expenses, such as when you have to turn over the property for a new tenant, maintenance, and anything else like that that will go into the property or tenant screening. So while you're not paying that fee, you're still taking on those expenses and you'll have more time dedicated to doing so. Now with the property manager, there are fees and they tend to range anywhere from 6 to 12%, with the most common in San Diego being around 8%. Some companies have a flat leasing fee for each time the property is leased, and some have a fee for walkthroughs or other additional fees they may charge for extra services. So not only will you have the fees that go directly to the manager, but you'll still have to pay for things like maintenance issues, turnover costs, etc. So just keep that in mind. It goes back to how much your time is worth. If you have the expenses on hand to pay a property manager, you might find that your time is more valuable and it's worth that extra cost to pay the manager. When it comes to lease only, typically how they price it is half a month to a month's rent for that leasing process. So again, that includes marketing the property, screening, and selecting and placing a tenant for you. For some people, spending that much money just to have a tenant placed isn't really worth it. But for some, if that's the biggest stressor of marketing their property, then they're happy to pay that month's rent to get a tenant in there. So we've reached the end of the video, and now we've gone over 5 important things to consider when you're deciding if you want to manage your own home, hire someone to lease it for you, or hire a full-service property management company. Everyone is different, and it's important to remember how much your time is worth to you, if you have those extra funds to pay a property manager, and which part of this process would be the most stressful for you, or if all of it is. We're happy to answer any additional questions that you may have, so leave us a comment, and don't forget to subscribe for more content like this.